Yes guys, it's Jando, day 7 of consistent uploading, and today we're going to be looking at foghorns and stab basses. These are the sounds that I use in my pretty popular track Det, so we're going to go over these sounds now. These are the sounds that we're going to be looking at today. It's going to be a foghorn and a stab bass. Yes guys, if you're interested in copying sample packs, preset packs, one-to-one production sessions with myself, mix and mastering services, as well as mix and mastering lessons, and a full drum and bass production masterclass, which is built up of 10 plus videos, very in depth, then drop me a message on Instagram. My Instagram is @JandoUK. I will be launching a website very soon, so this will make it a hell of a lot easier. But yeah, be sure to join the Discord as well. Enjoy the video. Yeah, let's get straight into the patch. So we've got a empty serum patch here. First of all, we're going to open up oscillator A and go over to basic shapes and leave this as a sine wave, and we're going to drop this -3 decibels. As well as this, we're going to drop the random and drop the level. Then we're going to do oscillator B, and we're going to do basic shapes again. And we're going to set this here to this triangle kind of wave. We're going to turn the random and the level all the way down on this one as well. Over on the sub, we're going to turn the sub on and do direct out. Drop it -3 octaves and then drop the level of the sub as well. After this, we're going to assign LFO1 to the level of this at about 45%. And then we're going to assign it to the level as well at 100%. After that, we're going to make our shape, LFO shape, which is going to be kind of downish ramp as normal. Something like this. Next, we're going to look at our envelope 1. So we're going to change this up a little bit. We're going to change the decay to about 490. 494 is fine. The sustain is going to stay the same, as well as the attack and the hold, and the release is going to be 530. 540 is fine. Next, we're going to do the filter, but before we dive straight into that, we're just going to put +9 semitones on the oscillator B before I forget to mention it. And we're also going to turn FM from B on oscillator A. So on the filter, we're going to go on to MISC, and we're going to go down to add bass. Cut off down here at 40. Assign LFO1 to the cutoff. We're going to put this about 25. We're going to put the res at 19%. Assign LFO1 to it. Drag this back to about 20. After that, we're going to boost the drive just a little bit to about 15%. And then for the modes on the filter, we're going to select oscillator B, noise, and this key one here. And that's it for the main section of the patch. There's a couple of more things that we're going to do before we move on to the effects, and that's set the mode here to envelope. We're going to turn on trip, and we're going to set this to 4-bar T. Now we're going to head over to the mod section here. We're going to macro the FM from B. We're going to set this to about 60%. Next, we're going to go over to the FX tab. We're going to do distortion, phaser, EQ, hyperdimension, filter, and compressor. And that's the order that we're going to do it in. So we're going to do distortion, phaser, EQ, hyperdimension, filter, and then compression. So for this, we're going to leave it on tube, and we're going to take LFO1, drag that straight onto the drive there. For the phaser, we're going to drop the rate, depth, freak, and feed all the way to 0. We're going to keep the phase where it is. We're going to put the mix at 27%. After this, we're going to EQ, so we're going to select, leave this on the top one on the right hand side, and on the bottom one we're going to do a low pass on it. So for this, we're going to push this up to about 8. We're going to pull the Q to about 50 and the freak to about 50. Well, central as well, so about 600. And this one, we're going to leave the gain as is. So pull back the Q to about 50. Push the freak slightly to probably to about 390, 400. After that, we're going to head over to the hyperdimension. And for hyperdimension, this time we're going to leave the rate as is. We're going to do the detune at about 75%. We're going to do the mix at probably about 10%. We're going to do the size to 0 on here. And for the mix, we're going to drag LFO1 onto it and pull it back to about 40%. Next comes the filter. We're going to go down to misc again and go down to reverb. The cutoff we're going to have at about 519 Hertz. The res is going to stay as is, and we're just going to boost the drive slightly, probably just to about 10%. And then the damp we're going to boost as well, not too much, probably to about 30% here. And we're going to pull the mix back as well to probably about 45%. Last of all is the compressor. We're going to pull back the ratio slightly, push the release up, push the gain up as well. Then we're going to bring our mix back to probably about 40%. At this point, you're going to have a really dull sound. So if we push this macro here that we set up for the FM, we're going to set this to about 78-80%. We now have that sound pushing through. And that there is how you get a foghorn sound. We're using the same post-processing, but we're just doing one thing slightly different. This EQ is just to take off the low end. But we're using this tau reverb, just the tiniest amount of wet on it, just giving it a very small amount of tail end. Tau reverb is just like a really old reverb plugin that I use, but I use it for various stuff. So the stab patch that I'm going to show you in a second, I use it here and I automate the reverb on it so that the reverb comes up just before the next stab. So it gives it a little bit of tail to like swoop in. You can kind of hear that sweep into it. So we're going to have a look at this patch now. We're going to turn the post-processing off. So we've got a fresh patch here. So this is the normal patch. We've got a fresh patch here to look at. We're going to open up our fresh patch and we're going to do exactly the same as we've just done. So we're actually just going to copy and paste patch from before. Our foghorn that we've made. And all we're doing differently with this, instead of having it on 4-bar T, we're just going to push this down to 1 T. And that is the stab patch as well. So you can mess around with the macro here. Get different tones out of the sound. But the stab bass and the foghorn are just literally just the exact same sound. We've just tweaked it slightly to add some variation to the track itself. But yeah, that's how you make the patch. With the tau reverb effect as well, which I've done on this one here, all we're doing is just automating this wet knob here. We've turned down the low cut. This wet one here, we're automating, so just before the sound is when it peaks, rises, and it gives a sweep. We could do the same for just before the foghorn as well. And it will go straight into the horn like that. So that is the patch, and that's how you make foghorn / stab basses. Nice one.